This last lecture is just a little fun. It's kind of a summary of everything we've talked about throughout the course of the class, but it also may give you maybe a couple of new ideas as well, mainly just to put all of this back in perspective. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. It's going to be, I hope, a little fun, a little entertaining, and helpful for you to put all of this, organize it, calibrate it in a way that allows you to move forward. Let's talk about sustainable marketing. And by sustainable marketing, I do not mean marketing of products that are grown in a sustainable manner. I literally mean doing marketing itself in a way that you can keep doing it for a long period of time. You know these figures that you've seen in front of you here. You know that a small percentage of the population drinks most of the wine. You know that our population growth and our per capita consumption is growing, so there is opportunity in the market. You know that most of the wine is consumed on the coasts in those dark red states there. And you know that the difference in generations is creating a bit of a sea change. The waves are starting to come from a different direction for the future. All of that needs to go into your thinking to say, not where do I want to be today? Sustainable marketing means where do I want to be 10, 15, 20 years from now? That's the question you got to ask yourself. We talked about marketing as preparing the ground for sales, planning for the future, taking a strategic approach. So ultimately, all marketing is focusing on the long term, sustainable. That's the definition of sustainable, is having a long-term vision for your company, not just, oh my gosh, how are we going to make payroll on Thursday? Not just, oh my gosh, are we going to make it to the end of the year and show a profit? But what is the long-term vision for the brand? There you go. By definition, long-term means sustainable. And again, success is not making great wine. There are any number of great wines in the market that are not successful. Success in the wine business is making wine and selling it at a great profit. And that's the ultimate sustainability. If you're making profits, everything else is golden. The challenge we all face, most wineries have no unique selling proposition. They don't have that key brand message that everybody says, oh, I know them. It's love that makes a Subaru a Subaru. We don't have taglines like that in the wine industry in very many cases. They often don't have an actual written marketing plan that lays out their strategy and their expected results over the next 5 years. And so in the end, that's not a sustainable business plan. And the first question you need to ask yourself is, are we as a business sustainable on a business basis? 3 key elements here. You need to have your point of differentiation. You need to have a continuous plan to increase how many people you're going to reach. Again, the fact that you are successful now is fine. But the real question is, if you want to grow, you need to find new customers. If you want to find new customers, they need to come from these areas. What are you going to do to expand your outreach? It doesn't just happen organically. People don't fall in love with your wine and tell their friends, and they tell their friends, and that just doesn't happen. What you need is a plan to push those levers all the way along so that when people get to your wine, the dominoes start to fall and you can grow. And ultimately, you need measurable goals for success. If you've got all 3, you have a possibility of some sustainable marketing. Marketing and viticulture are equally important for every winery. My message to most people who own wineries is, I know you have something to do every day in the cellar. I know you have something to do every day in the vineyard, but you also need to have something to do every day in your marketing, and you need to give them all equal attention. And unfortunately, so many people say, well, I'll get to that tomorrow because today I really have to rack the Cabernet. Not a good answer. You need to do this every day. You need to have a long-term plan, not just for your vineyard, not just for how you're going to make wine for the next 5 years, but literally a long-term plan for how you're going to evolve your marketing over the next 5 to 10 years. I like to position this that each one of your customers is like one of your grapevines. You need to take care of them. You need to love them. You need to prune them when they're getting out of control. But you need to deal with them every day the same way you deal with your grapevines. There is always something going on with your customers, and you need to be there and continue to have a vibrant relationship with them in order to be successful and sustainable. So everybody's doing marketing. And remember that your competitors are absolutely doing marketing against you because they're explaining to the people they talk to how they're different from you. And trust me, they're not putting you in the best possible light. So you need to be able to address those issues. You need to be able to respond, not necessarily in kind, but you need to have a clear vision of where this company is going, and you need to communicate that in a way that makes your competitors less successful. And of course, in order to do that, you need to know how many competitors do you actually have. That's how many competitors were in a wine shop in Napa a few years ago. Pretty big wine shop, 4,500 wine SKUs in this store, so pretty impressive. In order to do sustainable marketing, you need to know where the market's going, not where it's been. You need to aim your programs not at what is happening today, but what's going to be happening 5 years from now, what's going to be happening 10 years from now. A dear friend of mine really created a career for himself in marketing many years ago when he was at Dole Pineapple, and he started introducing individual serving sizes of those packaged foods, because he said so many of us are eating, we're no longer having big family dinners together. We're often eating off in other different directions. Somebody's going to the gym, somebody's doing this. We're on our own for dinner. These individual serving sizes will make that much more convenient, and sales skyrocketed, all because he understood where the market was going, and he created products that would reach that. And again, your goal is not to find customers. Your goal is to build relationships. Relationships don't mean you've got a customer. Relationships mean you continue to manage that customer, which means continued involvement. Not just, we sold them once, they're ours, but rather, okay, now that we have met them, we need to give them continuous communication to keep that relationship. And ultimately, for all the passion you have about making wine and tasting wine and knowing about wine, you need a passion for actually doing the marketing. I think you can see I have that. You need that as well. You do need to understand how fast you want to grow. Explosive growth is not sustainable. We hear people, in Silicon Valley talking about the hockey stick where it goes for a while and then suddenly rockets up into the sky. Wow, that's great. Doesn't actually work very well if you're making products that have a finite set of resources. Your vineyard doesn't do this. And so if you're going to grow that fast, it's going to be unsustainable. You need incremental growth, but incremental growth often makes winemakers unhappy because it forces them to constantly change and evolve. And most wineries don't have a very good plan for doing this. The brands that are phenomenally successful, brands like Meiomi, The Prisoner, 19 Crimes, have created a product where the resources available to the winemaker are almost infinite. Now, Meiomi has some limitations because it was originally Pinot Noir, although that's now expanded. But remember, The Prisoner, 19 Crimes, there are no varietals, very few designations that limit the winemaker's ability to make more wine. And so the goal for the winemaker is not, how do I turn these grapes into a wine that's good? The question is, I've got a wine that's good. How can I draw on a vast spectrum of resources to continue to make more of that specific wine? Much more the way a champagne house creates its house cuvée non-vintage brut than it is in the way Domaine de la Romanée-Conti makes its wine, for example. So from seed hopper to harvest, you need a certain number of contacts, you need a certain amount of awareness to get to a certain number of people who actually taste your product, to a certain number of people who buy your product. That's the sales hopper. And in order to increase, there are only two places you can increase your sales. You need to increase the total number of customers at the top. That's part of marketing. How do you increase the total number of people who are interested in your product and want to taste it? On the other hand, if you have your average customer and you can increase their average sale, that's the second way you increase sales, but there are really only two. And as you build your marketing plan to grow, you need to address which one of these are we going to focus on. The old adage is the best source of new business is existing customers, but ultimately there's only so much you can sell existing customers, then you need more customers, and it's not enough to just say, oh gosh, we're going to do all of this. You have to have a plan that says, well, okay, we'll probably need an additional 5,000 customers a year. How are we going to get those? And our current customers, we're going to increase sales to them 20%. How are we going to do that? Those are two different questions, two different strategies, two different sets of tactics, and two different ways of measuring the results. So it's clearly two different marketing campaigns. So here are the 6 biggest mistakes that I think companies make when they undertake marketing. And then the good news is I have some solutions to some of these. The first one is we just need one really big idea and it'll solve all of our marketing problems. This is the so-called silver bullet. If you've got $1 million idea, we'll pay you $1 million for it because it'll make our fortunes. It doesn't work that way. Remember my analogy to the Chinese wall. It's not a question of doing one thing well once. It's a question of doing a lot of small things every day, continuously for a long period of time, building that believable brand message that really communicates, and over time you will be successful. Marketing doesn't happen fast, and it doesn't happen because of one great idea. It takes groundwork, it takes strategy, it takes tactics, it takes all of that stuff. Oh, I can probably do this myself cheaper. We've all seen, whether it's the ads for the local car company on cable television, or whether it's the wine label where the wife of the owner has a sister who's a graphic designer. If you want to play in the big leagues, you need to get the big leagues involved. And that means you need to hire the right people to get this done. And yes, your personal voice is still valuable, but please do not think that you are the best person to draw the images, to design the packaging, and the rest of this stuff. You don't know how to do this, and you don't have time to do all of it well. So you need to hire some people. And don't hire people because they're cheap. Hire people because they're good. This is one of my favorites. Oh, my wine is so good, it'll sell itself. And this is normally said to me while someone's sitting in my office asking for help with marketing and communications, which I just think is hysterical, because if the wine's good enough to sell itself, why are you in my office? Put it on a shelf and see how many of those bottles just leap off the shelves into customers' hands. The answer is wine quality is really a very small part of being a successful brand. And the other half of that is most consumers, as we have seen in many very accurate tasting research projects, most consumers and even many experts cannot actually taste the difference. They may taste the difference, but they won't recognize which is more expensive. So having said all of that, your wine is not so good it'll sell itself. Oh, the second that now, remember I said you can do it all yourself cheaper is a mistake. The other one is to say, oh, I'm just going to hire somebody and they're going to take care of this. No, they're not. They need your input. Remember what I said about developing new markets. If you don't have a personal involvement, if you don't have a human interest and relationship with that cause or that special sponsorship, it won't be successful. So you can't just hire an agency and tell them to go off and do their thing. You need to be heavily involved. Again, every day, the same amount of time you spend working on barrels, the same amount of time you spend working on vines, you need to be spending that kind of time working on your customers, with your customers, doing your marketing. And it's going to require a lot of your time and attention. And the brands who have been successful, whether it be Robert Mondavi or Ravenswood or Rosenblum or Meiomi, all of them show that hands-on involvement in the marketing. Another classic myth is that I'll get 90 points and sit back and just watch the money roll in. And I will tell you, it doesn't happen. It's not hundreds, it's thousands of wines that get 90 points or higher. And in fact, most consumers don't differentiate between 90 points from Robert Parker, from the Wine Spectator, from the Wine Enthusiast, from Wine and Spirits Magazine, or from somebody else who files a report. So 90 points, 7,000 just from the Spectator alone. When you add in the rest of those publications, 10,000, 15,000 different wines get 90 points or higher. Doesn't matter at all. It gives you a little credibility. It gives you the ability to say, look, people think I make good wine, but that isn't why someone falls in love with you. Yeah, they make an intellectual decision to say, okay, $22, I've got 3 wines here. They're $22, $21, and $22, and it's $89, and it's $90, and it's $93. I'm buying the $93. That's a rare scenario to play out in most stores. Most stores, they're looking at labels, they're saying, ooh, I love the artwork on this, ooh, I love the way this bottle makes me feel. And then as long as the wine lives up to the expectation, you have delivered on your promise and you will be successful. And of course, the other thing about talking about your scores all the time is that there's always someone with a higher score. And when someone gets a higher score, make no mistake about it, they will talk about it, and they will talk about how their score is higher than your score. And then your entire marketing campaign built on points will go right down the drain. And here's my favorite. I'm too busy growing grapes and making wine to have any time to do marketing. Actually, what you're saying is I don't have any time to run my business. I'm too busy playing with the plants and I'm playing with the barrels. Get out and run your business. Run your business as if it's a professional organization. Professional organizations have marketing plans. They have marketing strategies, and they use tactics that are successful, and they execute those tactics. If you're not doing that, you are actually in dereliction of duty as the owner of your brand. So now let's talk about some things to go well. Here are 5 great tactics for sustainable marketing. Each one will help you take that step forward. And the good news is it's not like you do one. You can do all 5. Just like collecting Hot Wheels. You can get them all. First is stop, look, and listen. Don't talk. Every current customer, every current relationship, every current distributor, retailer, etc., they are all sources of information that will help you refine your brand message and deliver it more successfully. In order to learn about your customers and from your customers, you have to shut up and listen. Remember Marshall McLuhan's great line, propaganda ends where dialogue begins. You want to be having dialogues with your customers, not sending them propaganda. Next, tell a good story. Customers want to fall in love with your brand, but you need to give them a reason to fall in love with your brand. Nobody falls in love with your brand because it got 93 points. They may fall in love with your brand because you've always loved the Americana art of quilting, and you've got a huge collection of quilts, and you make quilts, and you support quilts, and so do they, and you believe these are very much like wine, and that you begin with the raw materials, but it's how you transform those raw materials into something that's really a beautiful piece of art. Now we're talking about a story. It's a struggle. You have to take the pieces, you have to put them together, you have to take the grapes, you have to turn them into wine, and people will fall in love with that. Not everybody. Frankly, the people who support NASCAR races may or may not go for the Americana quilt collection. But if you can get some of your customers excited about this, passionate about this, missionaries about this, you're on your way to achieving your goals. And the question is, ultimately, when it comes to your brand, what is your story? And is it the kind of story that people will get excited about? Would you like to know more about him? There's got to be a story there. I would love to know about him. I can't tell you that story because that's clip art. But that's what you want to know. Who is he? Where is he from? What makes him laugh? What does he do? What stories does he tell? What has he lived through? Fascinating character. There should be a book about this man. That's the way you want people to think when they see your marketing. Here's one that I particularly endorse, which is start off with 5 really good ideas. One of my ground rules about marketing is if you're not occasionally failing in your marketing efforts, you're not trying enough stuff. Remember that marketing, in essence, is the goal of going outside the lines, of making yourself stand out, of making yourself be different, from everybody else. If you are different from everybody else, you by definition have to be doing things that haven't been tried before. And if you think that everything that hasn't been tried before will work flawlessly, you're insane. Of course they will fail. The question is, which ones will fail, why, and which ones will work? Because it's a little bit like venture capitalism. You invest in a number of products and you think, well, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these ideas won't work, but if one really works, I'm golden. That same idea with your innovative marketing campaigns. Try 4 or 5 things. Don't dedicate everything you have to 5 absolutely untested programs, but try 3 or 4 or 5 new things, good ideas, execute them well, and at the end of the year sit back and say, you know what? This one was a disaster and we'll never do it again. These two, the only way we can do this is if we get distributor support. Maybe next year we'll try it in Chicago where the distributor seems a little more interested. But these two over here, these worked great. Now the question is, how can we cookie cutter them? How can we build them out into a lot of different markets, take advantage of the success we've got and build that out? Do that 1 year and you end up with 1 or 2 good ideas, and the rest you either refine or get rid of. The next year, you do the same thing. The next year, you do the same thing. And again, as per the Chinese wall, at the end of 10 years, you now have 10 to 15 marketing campaigns that are working brilliantly. Nobody talks about the 90 campaigns that you pulled off the table because they didn't work. What they talk about is the 10 campaigns that are working brilliantly, and everybody says you're a marketing genius. Well, you're not, but you're actually doing it right. Absolutely important here, and this ties into social media, it ties into the way you deal with your customers, which is you want to create community around your brand. Nobody believes this more strongly, for example, than airlines. When you open up that little in-flight magazine, half of those stories are about customers just like you. They want you to feel like you're part of the family. Ford for years had the Ford family. Subaru still talks about love. So what you want is to create a feeling around your brand that not only says, I like this product, I use this product, but I'd like to, and I do know other people who like this product, and I like them, and we're kind of a team. If that's the case, if that's your goal, you need to share with them, you need to trust them, and you need to give them a chance to give you feedback, them a chance to get involved in the future of the company, because that ultimately then creates this sense that we are all in it together. It gets right back to Marshall McLuhan, dialogue, not propaganda. And finally, the number 1, spend 2 hours of every day doing marketing and sales. As a small company or small winery, you only have time and money, and you have to invest them wisely. And I'm sorry, it is easier to get someone to take care of your vines. It's easier to get someone to take care of your finances, to take care of your human resources, to take care of your winemaking. The most difficult thing for any winery owner or company owner to delegate, to my mind, is the marketing, because it ultimately communicates the essence of the brand. And if you are not driven by the essence of the brand, you don't understand marketing and you will not be successful. Get up every day, take a look at yourself in the mirror and say, for the first 2 hours of the day, I'm going to focus on marketing and sales, and I'm going to make a difference, not just short term. I'm going to make a difference long term in the future of this company. And that's what I hope you'll do.